Something to be said for working out in the morning, man.
Oh, it's tough. But you know what? Most consistent people do it in the morning.
April's banging out 2 workouts a day. We got work to do, but that's okay because we get to learn vicariously through these individuals.
Yep.
Like we did on episode 128 featuring April Zilg of the Athletes Podcast. Another incredible episode, another incredible human being who we were able to fortunately chat with for 45 minutes. Incredible conversation that she was able to dive into some of her details as to how she goes about her high performance lifestyle.
Yeah, she has a this is like, no, you don't need to talk. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, she's got like a very upbeat attitude where it's like you just enjoy the conversation, enjoy what she has to say, and there's a lot to take in from the podcast.
Absolutely. But first, there's also a lot to take in within the world of sports.
Oh, yeah.
NBA Finals currently going on. Game 6 tonight, Thursday night, day of this episode being released. Golden State is currently up 3-2. My pick's looking good.
Your pick is
against the Boston Celtics that you decided to go with thanks to Dave Portnoy.
My pick's always wrong, but yeah, the I watched a bit of the last game. It was a pretty good one. You had our Canadian boy shine, Andrew Wiggins, getting 26 points. I think it was a career high for him in the playoffs. Taking it home for the Golden State Warriors.
Hey, there's also a fun fact, and I'm going to need you to put this up onto
Okay, so it's going to go right here. Yeah. Jabari Parker is better than Andrew Wiggins. And I don't know like a ton of basketball, so I got to admit, like that name doesn't ring a bell to me.
Okay, so Jabari Parker is not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, and he played in the NBA, might still play. Sorry, I don't know for sure, but Andrew Wiggins is an all-star caliber. There's a reason why he went first overall.
Yep.
And he's proving it now in the NBA Finals, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in any sport. Some players just like maybe the first team they end up on, it's just not a great fit for them, right?
They have a losing culture in Minnesota for a long time.
Yeah.
And now Andrew's having the opportunity to shine in Golden State alongside a couple other incredible players, and it's paying. That was a phenomenal trade by Golden State. And he's matching up well.
Yeah, he is.
You know who else is playing? NHL Finals. Colorado took down Tampa Bay Lightning last night, 1-0. Who do you think's going to win that series?
Oh, that's so tough. Like, you and I were watching yesterday, and the one thing I can say is Colorado is like just a skilled and dominant team, and then Tampa Bay just, you said yesterday, they just know how to play playoff hockey, and Vasilevsky is doing a great job for them. So it's whatever I say is wrong. So let's go Colorado.
This is the hardest goaltender Colorado's had to face over the course of the playoffs. That's going to be a factor. That's the most amount of goals Vasilevsky's led in a couple series, I'm sure.
Yeah. Since the Leafs, but I don't know.
I don't know. That's not. Yeah, probably. It's close for sure. Either way, 4 goals is not a regular thing for Vasilevsky.
No.
So we'll look to see a different performance the next game, but it's going to be a good series.
Oh yeah,
great NHL Stanley Cup Finals. I'm really looking forward to that. And then you also have been watching some F1. I heard it in the background.
Yeah, it was the Azerbaijan Grand Prix this past Sunday. Ferrari, who's the team I like to watch, is very similar to the Toronto Maple Leafs, where they have a great qualifying session, and you're really stoked about the race. You know, you're sitting P1 if you're Leclerc, and for the past 4 races, and this hasn't happened since 2002, for the past 4 races, Leclerc has qualified in P1 and has not won a single race. So it's just constant disappointment there. But I don't know. You know what? We'll see. It's getting difficult to take down Red Bull. As you know, Max Verstappen won the Drivers' Championship last year, and he seems like he's doing a great job in the running for it this year. Not just him, the team, but it's close. It's looking good anyways.
F1 is not my thing, but I love how fired up you get over it, and it's definitely a sport that I need to dive into deeper.
You know, it's a great way to spend a Sunday morning. You know, you make yourself a cup of coffee. If they're in Europe, most races start at like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., so it's just you wake up, you turn it on, and it's just a fun hour and a half, 2 hours. That's what you got to do.
If you were here on Sundays, I'd be watching more of it.
That's true.
That's where. So maybe next time, if you're around on Sundays, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get to episode 128 featuring April Zilg, a stand-up paddleboarder who found the sport in 2011 while completing her Master's of Science in Deep Sea Coral Reef ecology.
Oh, that's,
While completing her Master's of Science in Deep Sea Coral Reef Ecology at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. One of the best stand-up paddleboarders in the world, an athlete, activist, an advocate, who's also the founder of the Athlete Journal.
There we go.
Without further ado, here we go. Episode 128 featuring April Zilg. But maybe you can speak to the impact of Caston, who I was fortunate of meeting almost probably a year ago now on Clubhouse, but she's who got us in touch. Obviously, if you're interested in coming on the show, you saw where to do that, but maybe speak to what you've been able to do working with her.
Oh man, she's been just monumental. I'm trying to think of like a good word to describe her, his assistance or like her coaching. Being a solopreneur, an athlete entrepreneur, I struggled to find a business coach that would understand my time restraints as an athlete, because a lot of times I was talking to business coaches and I don't think they understand, like I just can't hustle the way like this entrepreneurship hustle, like, oh, this is your job, you from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. you got to be like, make sure you're networking and building websites or like whatever it is that your business is. And I'm like, no, I have to sleep for 9.5 hours or else I don't see the gains. And then I have to eat 5 times a day, and I prep and make all my own food. And then I work out twice a day. And then I've got like 2 to 4 hours every single day to run a business. Help, please. And she's been insanely helpful in helping me prioritize everything I'm doing and just giving guidance and working through problems as they arise. So just as a business coach, she gets it. She gets the athlete part of things. So she's been absolutely epic. So yeah, I hope we can plug her because she's amazing.
Yeah, we'll make sure that Jordan includes some links to her in the show notes as well. But maybe since you touched on it, I'd love to know just like high level what your training looks like, what your nutrition looks like on a daily basis. Just for us, we like to feature high profile athletes, coaches, nutritionists, doctors. But for you on a daily basis as a female who needs to ensure they're getting enough calories, like what does your daily intake look like, and what foods are you consuming?
I eat a lot of salad because I imagine you love listening to podcasts as well as creating them. I think Rich Roll just had a really good 3-hour one on the gut microbiome, which I've been all about the gut microbiome for a decade, but it's becoming very in vogue right now. Mm-hmm. But a lot of greens, because the health of your gut bacteria is one of the just biggest determinants of health, longevity, your ability to metabolize the food that you're eating as well. So I couldn't eat the 3,000 to 3,500 calories a day that I eat unless my like everything inside is like fully functional. So yeah, I don't set any alarms. I wake up naturally, which allows my body to just acquire whatever amount of sleep it needs. But that usually means waking up around 5:36. I hop on my computer, do 1 to 2 hours of like business. And then I eat breakfast, about 700 to 1,000 calories. Then I go for my first training session, come back. I have like a peanut butter, banana, like protein shake with tons of fixins, like all the different like ribose, glutamine, amino acids, moringa, ashwagandha, rhodiola, like literally everything. It's like super shake. And then I do a little bit more work with my feet up to help aid in recovery, do a lunch, do an afternoon, like little activity that just kind of helps me cultivate flow and a positive mindset, but not sitting at my desk. Like I go walk the dog, walk the garden, like walk outside or forage. I actually, like I said, I do a lot of gardening and grow my own food. So I'll run outside and harvest some things for dinner. bring them in. I do a little pre-prep. I just munch on what I'm prepping. So that's another probably like 300 to 500 calories of munching after the lunch, which was another, 700-ish calories. Then the afternoon workout, and then I come home, eat dinner. And after that, I relax.
Love that.
Yeah, but it's a typical day.
It's so nice to hear kind of these routines from different individuals, and everyone's looking to achieve kind of that peak performance to one degree or another, and I think it's really important to understand how crucial properly fueling yourself is, especially for those who are trying to make sure that they've got specific results obtained in a monthly, yearly, annual basis. But that's why you keep tracking your athlete agenda, and maybe share what the athlete agenda is. Maybe if you've got it, show it to us there on the screen. And then...
I know, I was like, where did I set my agenda? Like, I actually have to like reach under my desk with my feet. Hold on.
It's while you're searching for it, I think it's an important thing for athletes and just people in general to, like you said, protect their space and their time, especially when it comes to your health and wellness. And this is a topic that obviously comes up on a weekly basis on the Athletes Podcast, but especially when it comes to ensuring performance in long term, avoiding burnout, probably a ton of the different aspects you're going to go into. So I won't take up all of the airtime, and I'll let you kind of dive into it.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, self-care is something that I'm very passionate about, but a lot of my clients, like my private coaching clients and people in my online community, like when I talk about consistency of training and prioritizing their athletic practice, like people set goals and then they fall short, and then they feel bad about like falling short of their goals. And I was like, okay, well, if we pull out your athlete agenda and we look at the month page, like, do we see consistency in your workouts, or is it like kind of all over the place? And usually when we fall short of our goals, it's because we lack consistency. It's not, that we didn't do certain training sessions. It's just the fact that we didn't do it regularly or protect that practice. And I see that as a form of self-care. But my clients have just expressed that they feel guilty for taking that time for themselves, especially in something like paddleboarding or outrigger canoe, where it's so enjoyable. So they feel guilty when they prioritize their daily athletic practice. So they've set a goal for themselves. They want to work towards it, but then the time comes for them to get off of work, swing by the water, load up the board, go, enjoy their time on the water and enjoy their training session. And they feel like, well, if everybody else isn't leaving work yet, they can't. Or, their partner has gotten home, so they've got to rush home and help with dinner, or the kids are tidying up the house. And it's kind of just this, they see it as a luxury, not a necessity, to prioritize that just one simple hour every day of athletic practice. And again, like, that's my agenda, is to normalize that we're all doing it. Like, so your coworkers should be doing it. You're doing it. Your husband or wife is doing it. Maybe your kids are doing it. We're all doing it. So it's not like we don't feel guilty for taking our hour because someone else is going to take their hour too. Like, if we can just start with 1 hour, that would be glorious.
Yeah, I could not agree more, in the sense that it's not that much of your day. What is it, 5-6%? What does it break down to? I should know that, but it's a nominal amount in the grand scheme of things. And for the amount that it produces, as far as outputs, for the minimal inputs required to see the results, I think that's the biggest unlock. And the hardest place to start is when you haven't done anything, right? And I've heard you on other podcasts talk about this, but you need to build that momentum somehow. And sometimes it takes getting out of a rut and starting up something small, setting those goals, maybe even writing them down in your agenda. But having that first initial starting point is so key and crucial for the long-term success. Maybe you could explain how you're able to spark those initial...
Yeah, that initial motivation. I mean, and we all feel that too. Every New Year's, right? Like, we all set a New Year's resolution. We're super uber motivated. And a lot of us jump in feet first with that. We don't need any push. We're like, oh yes, this is a new year, I'm doing it. But what a lot of people do mistake that time of year, and I won't go off on a full tangent, but a lot of people in New Year's, they ramp up their activity level so aggressively while often cutting calories because they think that they're going to improve body composition. But the extreme energy deficit paired with like created from cutting calories while ramping up energy expenditure through workout, people usually last 2 to 3 weeks at best before completely crashing and burning. And it has nothing to do with motivation. It has everything to do with energy balance. So one of the biggest things I've learned over the past decade, going from like complete non-athlete, utter couch potato to, where I am at currently, is learning about energy balance and understanding that a lot of the times when I felt drained or unmotivated to do something, it wasn't me that was lacking motivation. It was just my body in a caloric deficit. And when we are in a deficit like that, we feel depressed, we feel anxious, we feel, we just can't motivate. We can't rally. We can't get up. We can't get going. If you're in caloric excess, your body's going to find a way, like healthy caloric excess. Your body will you'll twitch. You'll have maybe you want to dance in your living room. A lot of times I find when I'm in caloric excess, motivation's easy to come across. My body's just trying to burn energy. And that's the number one, I guess, tactic I use to motivate, is to make sure that I'm eating enough food. And as women, as a woman, that has been hard my entire life, because everything is geared in the media towards how to burn more calories, how to eat fewer calories, how to essentially cut and look really hot in a bikini. But it's just not a viable long-term strategy for motivation. But every year I go through an off season after my biggest event of the year. And when I start ramping my training back up, I'm really gentle with myself. I never jump in fully right back into training the way I was before. Usually the first week I just start blocking off the time and I don't even work out. I don't do any training session. I just write in my training journal, and I use that hour each day to identify my goals for the year, lay out my training plan, work backwards from where I want to be, and make sure I have enough weeks to set up and work towards it. I clean my home gym. I organize my office. I buff the bottom of my board. I change out rusty fin screws. I use the hour each day to do something that's going to make the next week easier and the next week easier. So I don't even train, but I do protect that time. So that would be number 2. Yeah. So that's my 2 top ways to get motivated.
I love it. We just actually released episode 125 with Sam Padlow, and he has a very similar method. He protects that morning. He's up at some ungodly hour, 3:45, 4 in the morning, but he protects that time, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's when he gets his training in, and that's what sets his day off on the right foot. Now, your current agenda, you've mentioned, is you want to help discover and prioritize the inner athlete with anyone who's out there. And I think it's important to highlight the fact that anyone and everyone really in their own right is an athlete to some degree. And I think you, given your couch potato to world champion title that you've kind of self-proclaimed, can probably speak to that better than anyone, because I'm sure over a decade ago, you were just as much or had that fire within you, but you maybe weren't lighting the candle at the right time or using the right methods to get that competitive edge going again. So I'd love for maybe you to share how you were able to turn that switch, because I'm sure there's a lot of people right now, whether it's getting through out of COVID ruts, whatever it is, that need that initial turn on, and having a real world example to reflect back on from April Zilg in episode 120, 8 of the Athletes podcast would be pretty incredible.
Dude, 128. Congratulations, by the way. I listened to Maddie LeBlanc's episode. That's back in like number 40. Was it 40?
It's 47. Yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, you guys have come. That's awesome. Still trucking and awesome content too. Yeah, you know what? It's hard because what works for me might not work for other people. When I started my fitness journey, I hadn't found paddling yet. And this is not necessarily something I would advocate to a ton of people to do. But 13 years ago, I went and got a puppy because like I knew that when I got home from work that I wouldn't not walk the dog. So, but some people might get a dog and then they're gonna, if they're gonna stay on the couch and you're not gonna walk your dog, please don't get a puppy. You know what I mean? But I knew that like I would go out every single day, and for 1 or more hours after work, I would not stay on the couch. I would not watch TV because that dog relied on me and needs exercise. She's actually still alive. Her name is Kaya the Boxer. She does have her own Instagram account, and she is a kind of a poster child for eating vegetables. She eats meat too because she's a dog, but she eats like vegetable homemade dog food and exercises for her hour every day. And
wow,
so she's like an ancient boxer because of the agenda, essentially, because we protect her hour each day too.
That's amazing.
I know. I like dogs.
It's a kind of an accountability partner too, right? In the sense that like, you've got someone waiting for you at the door to jump up, and you got that routine and it's set in stone. And at the end of the day, it's someone who you can enjoy that time with. And maybe you're not communicating with words, but you're able to spend that time together. And like you said, they bring you joy in so many other facets of life outside of just that walk too.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head for sure. Like she was my accountability partner early on. As an introvert, a dog made a way better like accountability partner than a human for me. And yeah, she's carried on that tradition throughout the years, which is epic. But yeah, I think just finding joy in the activity and not treating it as a chore was probably the biggest mindset shift for me. I think a lot of people don't like training or working out because our society has turned almost everything into work. And from work itself to doing your dishes, cleaning your home, weeding your garden, like driving your car, everything is something that you'd rather not be doing. You'd rather be relaxing. I think Epictetus called it like a false leisure though. And I think I've worked on changing my mindset, not just around my workouts, but everything in life. Like if I'm driving the car, I'm just trying to enjoy driving the car. If I have to do my dishes, just trying to be mindful, like set my posture right so that like I'm having a good like brain body connection and just enjoying the moment, whatever the moment is. And I'm not fighting for that moment to be over. And because every time you're like, you wish it to be some other way, you're kind of in a sympathetic state. So our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system has like our parasympathetic and our sympathetic, which is our rest and digest and our fight or flight kind of reactions. And research on training is really clear that when we train in that sympathetic, that fight or flight state, we're not learning, we're not going to build that habit. We're not going to make that adjustment. We're not going to do, I guess we're just not going to accomplish as much as if we can inhabit like a parasympathetic, a rest and digest state. So enjoying the activity and making sure that it's something that you're like deep breathing and finding just like time in. You're not rushing for it to be over. You're not like, okay, I gotta finish this workout in 15 minutes or else, I'm going to be late for this. You just have to set out the time and take your time and find the relaxing and the joy in it. A, for it to become a solid habit and a part of your life, but B, for the movements that you're doing to actually cement and become second nature. So as an athlete, you want to remember, all the hours you put into training. Like as a paddler, you want to remember how the catch feels. Like you want to remember the power phase of the stroke. You want to just maximize power for every single stroke. And your body won't remember how to do that if you're constantly stressed out and, in a hurry. So, yeah, I think to answer the question very succinctly, I just had to change my mindset from treating everything as work to treating it as play. Like it's a game.
Yeah.
We're athletes,
Yeah.
right? We have to play. It's a game. And if you're stressed out and panicked and you're like, oh my God, this person's in front of me. Oh my God, this person is about to pass me, or I can't keep up. That's all. You're either fighting to stay in front, or you're fighting to catch up, or you're fleeing failure or the person behind you. If you're constantly in a fight or flight state, you're never going to develop the habit nor see improvements.
It's such an interesting mindset shift that I'm very guilty of this. I'll be completely honest, of just being in this very hyper go, maybe not reflecting as much, taking that time, taking a second to breathe, and, in work, personal, professional, every aspect. So I'm realizing as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I got a lot of stuff to work on here. But like it's refreshing because you hear this from a gold medalist from the Pan American Surfing Games, gorge downwind, OC1 champion, WPA world champion. Like you've got these incredible accolades and you still have a very relaxed long-term mindset. And I'm curious where that comes from. Is that your parents? Is that just something you've had your whole life? Is that obtained through the past decade of like hard work that you're now, showcasing the route to success, or where does it come from?
I think the reason I got into paddling in the first place was a health scare. From my couch potato days, I had received just a diagnosis from a doctor that I did not enjoy. It frightened me enough that I decided I needed to change my entire life and eat well and find a hobby that would make me active. I tried running. I don't know who wants to do that for fun. That is just awful. Like I do it now because like it's a necessary evil, but I have not found much joy in running. It's still not my favorite. Paddling was something I found that I knew that I could do it every day, and I wouldn't ever find it boring. At least I thought at that time I wouldn't find it boring. There's definitely days now that it's totally boring, but it's a good boring. I put in like an audio book or something and I just go and do the repetitive motion. It's very meditative now. But my whole original reason for getting into paddling, I had no aspirations to win a gold medal or like a race at anything. I just wanted to not die. Like literally, I wanted to increase my lifespan. And that was it. And over the years, like I had won a few local races and I just wanted to see how far I could take it. So I did, but and somewhere in the middle there along the path, I did get a little caught up in the winning and the striving and the achievements and trying to like do more, pack it all in. And I wound up with energy deficiency and overtraining syndrome, and that knocked me back a decent bit. And I had to kind of revisit, why am I doing this? Like, why do I even paddle? What is the point? If I'm making myself sick again, then I obviously missed my original intention for doing this. So I had to dial things back and really kind of do some deep self-reflection. And because of that, I was able to identify my shortcomings, be honest with myself, and just say, hey, even if I never win anything, like I got into this because I love it and I want to be healthy and I want my body to function better and I want my brain to function better. And when I released myself kind of those expectations and comparing myself to other people and this striving, that's actually when I saw the improvements in my performance. It seems really cliche and like almost freakish, right? You're like, you have to, there's this old like Angry Beavers episode when I was a kid on cartoons. It's like, clear your mind of whimsy. And like, that's the only way you could become like the master at your craft. And I was like, oh, like, no, that wasn't a joke. Like you have to, you know, let go of, yeah, just kind of the things that might not be yours, like whether it is or it isn't, and just enjoy it. So I kind of hope that answers the.
Yeah, absolutely it does. One of the quotes I heard you say was, it's not a race, it's a pace. And I actually love also on your Instagram, which we need to definitely shout out afterwards, but you post some of the inspirational quotes that you have from your Garmin watch. And that's something that I'm not able to do on my Whoop strap. And this is not a Garmin ad, but I'd love for you to maybe like showcase, kind of talk about how you use that, not only for training as a wearable to get some data, but also as like, you know, maybe that extra kick of motivation in the morning, or, you know, other tool.
Oh, dude, I am a firm believer in using technology for good. I mean, you can use these devices and continue to train completely mindlessly, right? Like we could overtrain. But this thing, like my Garmin has the all-day heart rate sensor on my wrist. And so it's tracking not just when I'm doing my workouts, but it gives me an estimated calorie burn at the end of the day. So when I identified myself as like an overtraining human and I wanted to like fix that, and I was in a consistent energy deficit, like the Garmin all day heart rate and its caloric estimate for what I'm burning each day was huge. Because I realized, I wasn't eating, I would eat between like 1,500 and 2,500 calories a day, like depending on the day. So I hate tracking calories. I do not advocate it. But every once in a while, I do just kind of a check-in, just an assessment to see like, hey, this is what I eat in a typical day. How's it looking? Is this like stack up with my energy expenditure? Especially if I'm feeling a little unmotivated or something, I just feel off. I check my calories for a couple days and make sure that I'm doing all right. And more often than not, if I'm not feeling right, it's because I'm under eating. But yeah, having the caloric burn estimate and doing a couple day check-in, I realized that I was grossly under eating, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 calories a day for what I was spending. And so without my Garmin, I wouldn't have necessarily, I think, been able to resolve that. So it is the combination of the technology. I use the heart rate variability to assess readiness to train on a given day. What else? Like, dude, it does so much. It's crazy.
That's the best part about it. It's all like, it's data. And I know you mentioned you're a data geek as well. So to me, it's just having more at your disposal and knowing additional info, and whether you actually take it into account or not is like up to your discretion. And, you know, there's days where I've had a bad HRV and I still train, and I've hit PRs on those days. Right. And it's not necessarily a one-stop shop, but it is good to have a baseline of those metrics and understand it so that you can address your training with the necessary steps.
Dude, I completely agree. And so here's my shameless plug for the athlete agenda. I have like a mood and metrics section. So every day I write down the things that my Garmin's spitting out. So I write down my heart rate variability, but alongside that, like it does a body battery estimate. It gives out my resting heart rate first thing in the morning. When I do the heart rate variability, I write that down. So all of this data are the metrics, but it's the mood and metrics section. So I kind of elaborate on these, just the data. They're numbers, they're data. They don't mean anything unless you write down your subjective feelings. Today I feel flat. Today I feel low, or today I felt springy. Today I felt fresh and light. So when you start pairing like the cool numbers and the data nerd stuff from like the Garmin and the Whoop to your subjective measures, like what you're feeling inside, like mentally, you can start to find patterns and see patterns, and not only determine if you can rely on like a measurement like your heart rate variability, but really just like learn to trust your intuition as well. Like, oh, hey, you know, when I'm feeling like this, my heart rate variability is this. Or if you always set a PR when your HRV is crazy low, then you'd be like, maybe I can't trust this device to assess readiness to train. But
Right.
in either scenario, like there's no surprises, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
I that's what I also love about the sport is that there are no surprises in the sense that it's you, your board, and your paddle, and everyone has within reason the same weather to deal with and the same extracurricular variables. So for me, I shared a similar kind of viewpoint as you probably did 13 years ago or whenever you started. It was like, hey, this seems like a physical activity that I could get into that isn't extremely taxing on my lower body, i.e. running, and it still works my upper body, which is a focus, you know, still want to be working those muscles, and it's a cardiovascular activity. So for me, I'm like, this is perfect. I'm on the Toronto shoreline here, so I could take advantage of being right close to the water. What are, you know, those feats that paddle boarders go after nowadays? Because everyone likes, to your point, going after competitions, setting records. I know that was probably something that's been on your mind. I know 9-minute mile is a metric that you go off of. But like for me, if I'm sitting here like, hey, I want to get back into some cardiovascular health, I'm going to go purchase an inflatable paddleboard and get out here tomorrow. Like, what should I be looking towards as a, you know, baseline metric to be striving towards? And like, if I was to actually go for something, what's a really good time?
So if you buy an inflatable, you'll have to just race yourself. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I wouldn't measure, again, with the athlete agenda, it's not about measuring yourself to others. You're just setting yourself up for training in a sympathetic state more. And so because whatever board you buy is going to be potentially unique. Now, if you were to buy a 14-foot competitive race board, then you might start looking into the paces that the like professional athletes are trying to hit. And on a stand-up paddleboard, to be competitive in the upper echelons, you're going to look for a 6 mile an hour, like a 10-minute mile sort of thing. But if you're on an inflatable, you're probably going to be doing somewhere between 12 and 15-minute miles. And there's nothing wrong with that. What's important is that you keep a record, like say in your athlete agenda, of the distances you're going and the paces that you're going. And from week to week, you just want to build on that by about 10% each week. And you only want to change one dimension each week as well. So if you're looking to train yourself, not necessarily purchase into any training plans or follow anything else, it's very easy to improve on your own by, like I said, just changing one dimension of that workout each week. So for example, you want to paddle on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Like you're going to pick the distance, and each week you'd add 10% to the one on Monday, the one on Wednesday, maybe you add 10% speed, but don't change the distance. And then the one on Friday, maybe you change the heart rate zone, increase it by making it 10% harder, but don't change the distance or your speed. So you would change the way you're stroking. That's a really attainable way to improve and gauge improvement from week to week and see consistent changes and not have to do anything crazy or fancy.
So it's that progressive overload, but just in, you know, a different format other than weights.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, my favorite book on weight training is a periodization training for sports by Tudor Bompa. I build all
Okay.
of my strength training programs from that book. And it's, dude, everyone I put on like my paddle strength training, they're like, I've never felt so strong. Like, it's all Tudor Bumpa, that guy. But he wrote an amazing book. I just kind of read what he said and made it for paddling.
That's it. Well, it's obviously working out. You've got hundreds of athletes who are benefiting from the knowledge and wisdom that you're sharing. When it comes to picking the right plan, I'd love for you to, you plug the athlete agenda, but what should people do if they're looking at getting into the sport? Like, I know that there's a big, incredible community around the sport of stand-up paddleboard. Maddie LeBlanc, who you referenced earlier, is a huge advocate for the sport. Seems like all of the top athletes in the world are, for that matter. Can you maybe speak to what that looks like and how inviting the community is to newcomers?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't think water people are just awesome people. I don't think you find a community of more inviting people than stand-up paddling and outrigger canoe as well, because I've kind of branched over into outrigger canoe a decent bit. And there's a lot of towns that have OC6 teams. So you don't even have to own your own craft. You can join an outrigger team and get the kind of same fitness benefits, get into a community, and train and paddle and race as a 6-person team in the larger OC6s. It's like instant family when you sign up for these clubs. I moved to Santa Barbara for 3 years and like I knew no one. So I just joined the local OC6 team and I had a full family, like without even blinking an eye. I was like, if I needed anything, like here's like 100 people also, on the team across the men and the women's team, just ready and willing to help you out with anything you might need, moving, dog sitting, it just literally anything you can think of. Paddling is incredibly welcoming. And you don't need a lot to get started. Like I said, if you don't have to follow plans, but there's online communities as well. If you don't find a community in your local area, there's tons of like Facebook groups for paddling. I do have online training plans with Paddle Ninja, and I do custom coaching, and I have my own online community, my athlete agenda community. And I started it so that we could talk about athlete agenda stuff, but all we do is talk about paddling. But yeah, it's just awesome people. Very welcoming, very friendly.
Well, you're also an awesome person. And April, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I do have a couple more questions before we wrap up. I'd love to hear what your favorite body of water is to paddle on.
Oh my goodness. That's really hard. Whichever one is right in front of me at the moment.
Oh, great answer.
Great answer. Here, I was expecting some super extravagant, exotic place, and whichever one is in front of you. I'm from like Pacific Northwest, Vancouver Island, where I've done some paddleboarding, that in Lake Erie. So two very different bodies of water. So I thought maybe you might have something different. But hey, I love the fact that you've been able to see such success in this sport and doing it just in such an admirable fashion. I'd love for you to share what it felt like for you winning the 2021 Carolina Cup Graveyard Race in your home state of North Carolina.
Oh my goodness. Actually in 2021, because they moved the event to November, and they had to modify the course because of the 30-mile-an-hour winds. That year, I didn't feel like I had achieved my decade-long goal, right? It was amazing to have won it on my 10-year anniversary of first entering that race. And the first time I entered it, I didn't even finish. I was holding my paddle backwards. That's how bad I was. And to, work towards it for 10 years, and win, but on the modified course at the wrong time of year, it just didn't feel real yet. So this year in April, on April 30th, we had the real Carolina Cup 2022. It was the real graveyard race, the circumnavigation out through the surf, in through the inlets, the long grueling intercoastal leg, and then a second jettied inlet, and then a finish in through the surf. Doing it this year against a more competitive field and the time of year where I think the discipline to paddle all winter and be prepared for a race in April versus having all summer to paddle and being ready for a race in November, like the mental discipline isn't there. So again, I didn't feel like I really did anything in November, but this year when I won in last month or 2 months ago now, I feel like I finally achieved the real goal because I did the training, even though there were icicles all over my raft. So.
Wild. Hey, I think that, like you said, water people are just a different breed. And hey, obviously it's a good one. And I'd love for you to maybe share where people can show their support before we wrap up with our last question, that being the biggest piece of advice for the next gen of athletes. Where, again, can people see your links, support you on your adventure, get maybe their own athlete agenda?
Dude, I'm really fancy. All you have to do is follow me on Instagram.
Nice.
I do, weekly SUP tip Tuesdays. I'm giving out awesome. I hope it's awesome, but some people say it's awesome. I like it. It makes me happy. But I do SUP tip Tuesdays, teaching people little tips and tricks to be better paddlers. So follow me on Instagram. I just set up my Instagram shopping. So you can buy an athlete agenda straight from Instagram. You don't even have to go to my website.
I love that.
Yeah, my website is aprilzilg.com. I will often elaborate on my Instagram posts there in my blog. You can buy an athlete agenda there as well. And I also have the Shopify website set up, but it needs a lot of work because I am a one-woman solopreneur, and it's got a shop button, and that's it.
You're doing a stand-up job, pun totally intended. We really appreciate you coming on the Athletes Podcast. Like I mentioned, the way we wrap up every show is by asking our biggest piece of advice from our guest, whether that comes to nutrition, training, just general life advice, maybe all three. What would you like to leave the Athletes Podcast listeners and viewers with, April Zilg?
I think follow your passion and don't go after profits or let other people define what success looks like for you. When you're doing the thing that you love to do, everything else really does fall into place. You don't need a lot of money to make you happy. If the only real happiness is going to come from inside and you working towards the things that matter to you. So find joy. Don't be in a hurry. Slow down.
Wise words.
Yeah. Just enjoy the ride, man.
Hey, next time we have our next conversation, hopefully I'm doing a better job of it, and hopefully those listening are as well. Appreciate your time, April. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you, folks, for tuning into the 128th episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring April Zilg, an incredible human being, an incredible story. I hope you folks enjoyed it. If you could drop your favorite part of the episode down below or in the comment section if you're listening to us via podcast, we would really appreciate it. That way we can continue to provide as much information as possible for the next generation of athletes that we can. If you're new to the Athletes Podcast journey, we're here to educate, entertain, and inspire that next gen. And we appreciate you tuning in for the 128th episode of the Athletes Podcast. Do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. It means the world to us. And we'll see you next week. Hope you have a great day. Bye.